Hey, it's Jay. I wanted to extend a special thanks to those of you who have listened and left reviews on iTunes for this podcast. Please leave a review if you haven't done so already. We sincerely appreciate it. We're producing this show independently, and unfortunately, that is not free. We have to pay for digital hosting space, software, equipment, websites, and travel out of our own pockets. But we'd love to keep this show going as long as possible. Please show your support for this podcast and give it life by making a donation to www.bigbuckregistry.com/donate or pledge your support by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. You can also find our app in our Apple App Store called Big Buck Deer Hunter 2015 and in the Google Play Store for Google and Android devices. Thanks for your support and enjoy the show. Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 109. Nick and Jake Miller, the OTown Killers from OTown Outdoors. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hello, my name is Merrill Sport. I'm president of the Hunt Channel, and you're about to listen to my favorite podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Gordon Whittington, Editor-in-Chief at North American Whitetail Magazine, and you're about to listen to another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey, this is Dean Capilano from Swarovski Optic and host of Swarovski Optic Quest. You're about to listen to another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happened? Psyched to be here on the mic and talking deer hunting again with my good friend, with you, Dusty Phillips. What's happened, Dusty?
Shh.
What?
You hear that?
What?
It's almost deer 30.
Deer 30.
It's almost deer 30, man. I'm pretending like we're headed in the woods right now.
It's starting to feel that way, although it's like wicked humid, but I've seen a little spike in activity in our podcast, which means that people are now probably starting to think more about deer hunting now because they know it's just around the corner.
Dude, if I don't get some tree stand therapy real soon, I'm going to have to take some medicine or something.
Completely agree.
I guarantee it. I got to do something, man.
So, Dusty, I was on the Big Buck Registry Facebook page today, and I got a message from Waylon Langford. It says, "Hey, Jay and Dusty, I'm in need of a name. I know how you and Dusty like to name deer, so is there any way you would come up with a name for my buck here? I'm just stuck, and I can't come up with one." And he sent this video. So I'm going to send this video to you.
Okay.
And I want you to take a look at it. And
Absolutely.
Then next week, we'll name that buck.
I'm all in for that.
For Waylon Langford.
Absolutely.
Waylon, if you're listening, we're going to review the video, and then we're going to leave it up to the deer naming master, Dusty Phillips, and we're going to come up with a name for you. Now, I guarantee it's going to come to Dusty like that. Just a snap of the fingers.
Absolutely. Did you tell him about our $59.99 deer naming special this month?
Are we charging for it now? Is that what we're doing? Gotcha. That's funny. I also got an email from Dennis Betancourt, and he says, "Hello, Jay and Dusty. I'd like to start off by thanking you guys for what you do. I enjoy the podcast and listen to it all the time at work and on the road. It really breaks up my drives. I'm contacting you because I recently listened to an old episode about shed hunting and thought to myself, you guys need to talk to Jim Coster of Temple, New Hampshire. The man has a gift when it comes to locating sheds, and he does it all on his own without dogs and on all public land. I'm not sure how many deer and moose sheds he has, but it's hundreds and many of the same deer year after year. Plus, he's got great stories, kind of your thing. He also filmed for Lane Benoit back in the day. I included a picture of the antler Christmas tree that he made and to give you an idea of his collection of New Hampshire sheds. I was at my sister's cookout recently, and I mentioned the show to him, and he said he'd never heard of it, but was interested in talking to you guys. So I figured I'd try to coordinate it. Please contact me if you're interested. Good luck this season. 49 days and counting. And there's a massive picture of this massive Christmas tree, just of all antlers. Yeah, we got to talk to that guy.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great story for the listeners.
Absolutely. Without dogs, I mean, we've covered the dog thing, but Dennis, if you're listening, man, we're in. We are definitely in. I'm going to call you tomorrow. So let's get this done. Yeah, I think this would be tremendous.
Absolutely. You know, somebody that, has been in contact with Lane Benoit and a great shed hunter. That just sounds like a great combination, Jay.
Sounds like a very energetic individual. So speaking of energetic individuals, Dusty, we have a very special guest, a longtime supporter of the Big Buck Registry. And when I say long time, since our inception, and they were a couple of guys that have reached out to me way back. And way back is, I mean, we're only a couple of years old, let's face it, but they've been supporters almost since day one. A couple of fellows from OTown Outdoors down in your neck of the woods in Ohio, Jake and Nick Miller. And they're forming a little band of hunters, and these guys are great. They sent me emails. They've sent pictures in for bucks. They've shared our podcast week in, week out. So there's nothing I like more than a strong supporter of the podcast, as you know. But these guys are young. They're still in college. They're filming their own hunts. You met them when you went down to hang out with Mike and Red down in Cabela's recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
They came down. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, two great young men right there. They got their head on right, and you can see that the love for the outdoors and the love for hunting and the passion that they got for what they're doing, and that all combined together is pretty deadly, Jay.
It is, and you said that they were very fit individuals, like they're world-class athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one's a wrestler and one's a track. One does track, and you can definitely tell the whole family. Even their dad, Steve, was he was in great shape, and he was. They were super nice and made for a great trip to Columbus, Ohio, Cabela's. Mm-hmm. And thanks for making that journey. It was great meeting you guys for sure.
I've enjoyed talking to Nick and Jake, and they just are the kind of guys that I love seeing get into the industry, and I think they've got a very bright future. They're taking classes from Tom Petrie, who used to work for Campbell Cameras, learning how to do the right shots, and they're taking it dead seriously, and they're talented. They kind of remind me, and I mentioned this, I think, during the interview, the guys from Tag and Brag, the Giarizzos, except they're younger, and they've got a plan, and they're motivated. I love that. So get ready to listen to these guys talk, because I guarantee you will be pumped up by the end of the show.
Absolutely.
Yep. So without further ado, let's get the Millers on the air.
Let's do it, Jay.
Nick and Jake Miller, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, fellas?
Awesome. How are you? We're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
It's been a long time coming. You know, we've been kind of communicating back and forth over the years, and I know you have been one of the longer time supporters of the Big Buck Podcast, and we finally got you here. I'm pretty psyched.
Absolutely, yeah. We're pumped. Yeah, like I was talking with you earlier, you know, we've been following Big Buck Registry for a while now and keeping up with on Facebook and everything. And yeah, we're honored to be on here. We're excited.
Well, thanks for joining us. You're in Ohio, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Right. Ontario, Ohio, which, you know, most of the time we say we're from Ontario. People say Canada, but
right.
Mansfield, Ontario, which is right basically in the middle of Ohio. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Now, why is it Mansfield, Ohio? Is it Mansfield, Ontario, Ohio?
Ontario would be like a suburb of Mansfield, which is the larger city.
Okay, gotcha. So it's like a village, so to speak.
There you go.
In a sense.
Yep.
Okay, good. So you're in company with our co-host, Dusty Phillips, who is on the other line, of course. And so how far are you guys from each other?
We're Probably about an hour, right?
Dayton area?
Yep.
Yeah. Probably closer to an hour and a half or an hour and 45. Yeah.
Okay.
Not too far.
Okay. So do you guys consider yourself Buckeyes?
Oh, absolutely. OH. IO.
Excellent. All right. This is going to be fun. All right. So you guys you have like this energy, and I can't help but recognize it because even through your emails, the way you write, the communication we've had so far, you're high energy. And I can't tell if it's just because you're 20 years younger than I am or if it's that you actually are just high energy guys. Which is it, do you think?
Well, for me, I guess, mainly, I mean, I live my life that way, but anytime I'm talking about hunting or, what we do in the outdoor industry, I'm just always amped and excited about everything. So there's very, very few days where I'm not amped up and just excited about this kind of stuff. I guess, you're the same way, Jake.
I would say that, especially when Nick and I get together with our family, immediate and extended, we just do things that we enjoy. And when you're enjoying doing things, it's really, really easy to exude that energy and come off as a very energetic person. And we just have a good time doing what we do. And we love hunting the outdoors. And so that's what we do.
Okay. So you're 20 years old and 21. Is that correct?
22 and 20.
22 and 20. And
yes, sir.
Gotcha. So where do you get that passion from? Is it something that's just in your gut and you've had since day one, or is it something that is it a family upbringing thing? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I'd say more of a family upbringing type deal. We were lucky enough to grow up. Both sides of our family was kind of filled with hunters, but mainly our father. He's been taking us out there. You hear stories all the time of going out in the woods, at basically out of diapers. Not that young, but very young, and teaching us the ways and giving it to us in small doses, not forcing anything. So I think that really is what fueled the fire right away was our dad,
Okay.
And I think as kids growing up too, you see what your father does and you want to be just like dad because he's the superhero in the family, I can remember a time when Nick and I went out and we were probably 8 years old. I was probably 8 years old. Nick was 6, and we went out with our plastic pistols and sat in the tree line in Grampa's field with Dad for a half hour to go deer hunting. So
right. You guys are very well spoken. So are you still in college? Go to military? Where do you get your education?
We're both still in college.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So this little adventure that you're on with OTown Outdoors is you're still like educating yourself.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what you just said. What we say, we look at it every semester, every day, kind of bettering our education. But we, gear it towards hopefully the future with OTown Outdoors.
I know for me personally, sitting in a class as a public relations and video student. Sitting in class and hearing a lecture where the teacher is giving an example about some business and corporation. And the only thing I can think about is how I can take that model and apply it to us. Yeah. So I think that's kind of how we both are.
Gotcha. Yeah. What are you guys studying in college?
I'm a communications and business major.
And I'm a public relations and video productions major.
It's amazing how much your voices sound alike because I really can't tell you apart. But now I can.
We get that amazing. A lot.
Gotcha. Are you guys going to the same school?
We do not. We actually are pretty much on opposite sides of the state, which makes getting together and filming hunts very difficult sometimes. I go to the University of Mount Union in Alliance, Ohio.
And this is Jake talking, I go to the University of Findlay. So Nick's on the east side of the state and I'm on the west.
Gotcha. So obviously we're recording this during the summertime and you're off from college. And so how do you spend your time during the summer? I know you talked to me the other day and you were taking a class.
Right. Yeah. I just got back from Illinois. Actually, I was out at Campbell Cameras. They had a 4-day field production class. But other than that, we both work. Obviously, gotta pay for college somehow.
Absolutely.
But all of our spare time, a good chunk of it is always devoted to whether that's capturing B-roll for our hunting episodes. Getting in contact, networking with people in the industry, things like that. That's how our summer is spent. I mean, but there's also the downtime, spent with family on vacations, which we enjoy too.
Sure.
Yeah, you got to work and play kind of go hand in hand.
Gotcha. Listen to you guys using the word B-roll and stuff. That's like
we're in the know.
You're in. You are in. So Nick Milla, the OTown Killa. Where did that come from, gents?
Oh man, well it's so funny that you bring this up because obviously OTown Outdoors, that came from somewhere, but the name all started everything. And what happened was in high school, Jake and I both were 3-sport athletes, and just out of nowhere, one of our teammates on the wrestling team just came up to me and was like, Nick Milla, the OTown Killa. And I was like, what? OTown meaning Ontario, obviously, where we're from, where we went to school. And that one day where he called me that out of the blue, just absolutely blew up. Eventually we had like shirts made and stuff. People were calling us this like all over.
And we had Nick Milla, the O-Town Killa, and Jake Milla, the O-Town Thrilla.
Yeah.
Eventually. So
I don't know. It just like snowballed from there, and it just kind of became like a running joke, I guess. And then when we 2 years ago, when we were kind of trying to take our filming to a whole new level, and I don't know, it just seemed like OTown Outdoors was the best fit for us, and the name hasn't changed.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. So I gotta admit that I'm 44 years old, and you guys are in your 20s.
You got to keep telling people that, Jay.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to set up the question here, Dusty.
Oh, gotcha.
Dusty, how old are you? 30-something?
33. 21.
Right.
There you go.
Well, I feel 18. I mean, I'm.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what matters.
Yeah. I've felt 18 since I was 16. So it's interesting that, you look at some of the generational gaps, and I see your generation, we always, as us older guys look back, we're like, well, who are these guys? And, are they really going to make a difference in the future? Are they, they seem like they're disconnected from where society should be and that kind of thing. What do you have to say about that?
I think that for us, one of the things that kind of stands out to us, and I think we've been this way ever since we started to evolve into young adults, is that we always want to have some sort of an impact in the people who interact with us on a daily basis. Okay. And our goal then is to take that impact and always make it positive, whether it's being there to talk to somebody or lending advice in hunting or fishing, or we both kind of coach younger athletes in the sports that we did in high school. So I think that's kind of how we try to fit that into our lifestyle.
God, I wish all the 20-year-olds out there had the mindset that you do. That's so refreshing here. You have no idea.
I mean, I think for us too, the reason why, we see so many people out there that say lead by example, and we want as a brother duo to lead by example for the rest of our generation, I think. Right.
And gearing that more towards our hunting, our OTown Outdoors would be, like transition that into what we put out there for people to see, like Jake said, by an example, and doing things that, I don't know, I guess better the outdoor industry or the game that we're hunting as opposed to just ourselves, I guess you could say. Okay.
Do you think that stems somewhat from your appreciation for the outdoors and nature?
I would say
absolutely,
100%.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
That's kind of, you get back to somewhat of the grassroots of what it is to be a helpful person in society when you have that upbringing in the outdoors, where you learn hard work and patience and perseverance and
conservation. All around.
That's no, that makes me feel good, guys. I just have to admit that. Dusty, chime in here. Now, when you speak to somebody in the 20-year-old age group, would you have guessed, talking to Jake and Nick tonight, that they were 20-something years old?
Oh, absolutely not. It boils back to I think that the upbringing of a person and, family roots of where they come from. And, you both sound like two fine gentlemen that's got your head on right. And it's going to make something of yourself if you're going to die trying, if not.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
We do.
It's not very often, Jay, that you run into two young gentlemen that, actually got their mindset in the right place and are trying to do something with themselves.
I agree. I just, it's kind of mind blowing, to be honest. I've talked to a lot of, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and, they can't even carry a conversation because they're buried in their phone. And that the only way they know how to talk is through a text, which is handy, but it's not the way you should communicate.
Oh, for sure.
But that's why I'm so impressed with the way you're just well spoken. So I think that's fantastic. And the fact that you related back to the whole idea of, a appreciation for nature and hunting, that just sets it all home. I mean, that's the best. So,
and that's the message we want to put out there is excellent. That you can get back to the positive reality through the outdoors.
Very cool. All right, guys, let's talk about OTown Outdoors.
All right.
Where did you develop the name for OTown? I kind of get it, but where did this stem from?
Right. Well, okay, so I think it was almost 3 years ago now.
I think it was more like 3.5 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, we've been filming our hunts our whole life, but I put together this random video. I don't even know. It was a video of all of our hunts from the past, kind of stemmed into one episode, and it was really amateur. And Jake and I kind of sat down and we were like, you know what? Like, we can do something with this. Obviously growing up watching every outdoor television hunting show out there, and we were like, we can do this. So we kind of started bouncing off name ideas then, I guess you could say, kind of establish ourselves. And it started out, what was it, Jake? It was
OTown Deer Productions.
Deer Productions, yeah.
I like that. It's pretty catchy.
You can still search that on YouTube and find the video.
Really?
Yeah, I think you did, yeah. And I don't know, after saying that about 50 times, though, I was kind of like, actually, I don't like saying that too much.
I think we both said that.
It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't ring. And so
we knew that our hunting passion started with deer hunting, and our dad used to take out the old JVC videotape where you'd have to plug it into a VCR and you could watch it that way. And that's how we started filming hunts. But we knew eventually we wanted to get into other types of hunting and outdoor activities, including things like bow fishing and turkey hunting and all that other stuff. So Deer Productions didn't fit with that new broader spectrum of what we wanted to encompass.
And I guess narrowing that down then, OTown, Ontario, where we've been, raised our whole life, where we do all or most of our hunting. It's where everything goes down, where we do our editing,
it's home base.
Yeah, it's home base. So we wanted that incorporated. And like I said, like everyone, all of our close family and friends know us, as Nick, Milla, OTown, Killa, and whatever. And like, it just, at the time, we really wanted to incorporate that into who we were. So
we actually just got a picture message from one of our uncles on our dad's side of the family. And it was of Nick and I together at an old family Christmas party. And we were probably 5 and 3, and he said in the text it was captioned pre-OTown days. So that name is stuck with us, and we wanted it to become part of the company that we created.
Right.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. I like the name, and it's been growing on me, and because of your support for the Big Buck Registry, like I knew who you were simply by seeing the name OTown. So
gotcha.
It's got a branding associated with it. I get it.
Right. That was part of the idea, I think, as well.
And ultimately, kind of in a way trying to put Ontario kind of on the map in terms of deer hunting and what we're trying to bring to the table as well.
Gotcha. All right, Nick.
Yeah.
It's a serious question.
Uh-oh.
On your on your website, it says that you believe in Sasquatch.
Yes, I do.
All right. Tell me how you got there.
Oh, man. Well, it goes a while back. My cousin actually was big into Bigfoot, into Sasquatch when I was young, and he's quite a bit older than I am. And I just kind of idolized him at the time, and I was like, if he thinks Bigfoot's real, I think Bigfoot's real. But then as I got older, there's those, now there's Finding Bigfoot and all these TV shows, and I came across the famous like Patterson footage from like 1940, and I was just fascinated with it.
Sure.
Absolutely obsessed with it, and I fully believe that Bigfoot is real. I think he's out there. However, I'm not sure that these, biologists, these scientists with finding Bigfoot are really looking in the right spots. But one day, I don't know, one day
it might be an OTown adventure someday.
Hey, it could be. It could be.
All right. So a second question, and this one's for Jake.
Yeah.
Jake, you're the OTown thriller.
Yeah.
But you haven't killed a buck in 8 years. Explain.
No, sir.
He's cursed. He's cursed.
I mean, it's easy for someone to say that, oh, I have terrible luck. But we both kind of feel like you make your own luck. And, I mean, even in some instances, yeah, you do have a bad year. But that doesn't mean that you can blame it on other outside factors or anything like that. A lot of times, the successful hunts that we've been on, I've been behind the camera. So that's, in my mind, I'm just as lucky as the person who got to actually shoot the arrow.
Gotcha.
But he's cursed.
Why do you think you're cursed?
No, if you talk about luck, and I mean, luck does play into hunting. I think we all know that as hunters, it does factor in for sure. It just seems like when Jake's behind the camera, I have most of the luck. It just seems how it's been working out. And Jake's, I mean, he's had opportunities in the past 8 years, and just things haven't always panned out. But another fact is 2015, this season is going to be different. That curse is going to end. That's a fact.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little about how you're going to go about that, Jake.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
Well, I mean, even just I would venture to guess that in the past 2 years of the creation of OTown Outdoors, we've probably learned more things about hunting and managing a property and running trail cameras and planning food plots and doing all the homework than we have in
for sure
the rest of our lifetime combined. So I think now we're much more dangerous when it comes to locating a big buck, finding his travel patterns, and setting up in an opportunity for us to have that shot.
Okay.
For sure, yeah.
We actually did that last year with Nick's biggest buck to date. We had him patterned all summer long, knew where he was going to be in the early season. And on that day, Nick actually asked me if I wanted to carry my bow. And I said, no, I'll take the camera. And lo and behold, Nick shoots the biggest buck of his life. So that's, I think, where Nick says he has the luck when I'm behind the camera. And I think it's just because I don't care to carry the bow. If I have to carry the camera, I'm just as in tune with the hunting and just as involved and excited as if I actually took the shot myself.
Okay.
That makes for an awesome pair.
It does.
Yeah,
it really does.
Definitely.
Dusty, you want to kind of grill these two young men about how their progress of learning how to hunt whitetail has gone over the years?
Yeah, I do. I want to bring it back to like when you guys first started. Tell me a little bit about like your first hunts out where you actually harvest your first whitetail. We don't want to get in full detail, but I want to kind of just run through a little bit of a starter, and we'll progress as we go here.
Gotcha. Well, our first hunts, mostly, we didn't even climb trees or tree stands. We hunted straight from the ground and, old school style. And we had some awesome encounters. We harvested deer that way. My first deer actually was out of a big shooting house it was during youth season with a 20 gauge shotgun.
It probably sits 8 feet off the ground, pretty much in the wide open middle of a tree line, and the deer just cruise right in front of it. It's just a natural travel corridor.
And I mean, this was when we first started. That was my first year hunting. And I mean, there was no scent control. All three of us traipsing through the woods. Compared to what we do now, it's night and day. We would never even, consider doing now how we hunted back then. But I mean, it worked.
I think a lot of it too back then was, you're sitting in a stand and 150 yards away, you see a deer. So the next time you go hunting, you move to that spot, hoping that deer is going to be there again. And just because of the area that we hunt, there are so many deer. A lot of times it worked out in our favor. But a lot of it was just, I think, kind of blind guessing and going with the flow.
Learning along the way, We're all completely self-taught all around the ball game, wouldn't you say?
I would say so.
You brought up a great point there when you said that you went out and you seen a deer that was 150 or 200 yards away and you moved to that. Is that something over time that you've learned that to adjust to, try to set yourself up in the beginning on that spot that you think the deer are? Is that something that progressed as years of experience come about?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, because now, then we didn't have trail cameras, we didn't scout. Opening day came and we started hunting. Now it's 365 days a year. Running trail cameras, driving backcountry roads that butt up to our properties. Scouting bean fields, figuring out what these deer are doing and when they're doing it. It's just completely changed now. Yeah, so
where in the past, when we started, we patterned the deer during the season to figure out where the best spot to sit was. Now we do it prior to the season and all year long so that we have a better knowledge of what our deer herd is doing, and that way we can manage it a little bit better and try to approach hunting from the, I guess, most accurate way possible.
Absolutely. Tell me about what methods do you use to capture your deer movement and your activity throughout the summer months?
Well, we run our covert scouting cameras religiously. Never had a problem with them. And, we set up mineral sites, obviously, just to increase the overall health and antler growth of our herd. And that obviously helps getting deer activity and kind of locating what bucks are in your area, obviously. And then, like I said, just scouting and putting in the time and, coordinating that with moon phase and, when the deer are moving and why they're moving is just really played into our favor, especially last season and, hopefully this season as well.
I think a lot of it too is that something that I think we can agree on this, Nick, is that a lot of hunters, more so in the past than now, but they used to overlook the shed hunting phase of deer hunting. And that's so critical because you can find what bucks survived. But as you're walking through the woods looking for that antler, you can see what travel corridors they're using most, where the leaves are stamped down from their constant traffic, and that helps you or helps us decide where we're going to put our covert cameras.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the best time to scout personally. Shed season. I think that you can collect the most information during, March when you're shed hunting than you can any other time of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. Let me ask you if you think that being out there shed hunting and learning the lay of the land and being a stewardess of the land that you're hunting, what role does that play in your success during hunting season?
One thing that we always try to do is to, you can kind of guess where a deer is going to be walking based on where the high points are and where the low points are, what direction the field edges are, where the wind's going to be blowing through. And I think that helps us then manage our herds better when the season comes.
Right.
Is there any particular things that you do to keep the deer in your area, such as food plots or
actually last night we were just out. Dad and I were just out getting one of our food plots ready. Yeah, that is one thing we try to do to hold deer onto your property, especially late season. When food is scarce.
And it's something that's, you don't need to plant a 15-acre food plot. Ours is a quarter of an acre. And it's just that little bit of extra edge that we have because we're hunting on land in places where, we don't own 450 acres on a farm. We have 25, 30 acres of woods that we hunt that's surrounded by 25 and 30 acre other plots of woods and fields that other people hunt. So
managing a herd is very difficult. And I think kind of gearing now towards like our video aspect, we want to let people know that we're just, average people going out and doing this. Like Jake said, we don't have thousands of acres of untouched deer that we can pick and choose from, so managing it does seem to be difficult at times, but at the same time we have harvested deer and past deer and then seen them in years past and harvested them. So it's difficult, but it can be done if you play your cards right and do your homework.
I think that the way that we approach our hunting and our deer herd management, because of the circumstances that our land exists in, helps us to be better hunters and better stewards of the land, because we have to take in probably 3 times as much information as someone who gets to hunt a property where they know their deer are going to be only on that property.
Right. Yeah.
So there are so many other external factors that could manipulate where the deer herd is going that we have to take into account and try to combat.
Can you explain some of them factors?
I mean, the occasional dog that might run through a wooded area and scare off a deer, or
we had a run in this past season, unfortunately, with a trespasser / poacher, actually.
Right.
And that too. I mean, just all.
And that's something that we were brought up against, basically, I guess. I mean, we were taught from day one all of the rules and how to do things right.
Not even rules, just ethically what you should and should not do. And
there's, unfortunately, there are people out there who disobey those things, and those are factors. And then you have someone who might, I mean, we have a farmer in our area who for some reason plants a 45-acre field of corn standing and leaves it standing until March. And so that's something where deer can hide, and we don't know from year to year whether or not he's going to do that. So that changes the pattern of deer movement.
Which in that field that Jake is talking about, we don't actually have permission to, that it butts up to the property you have permission on, which makes it hard. If that was the case and that was on a property that we can hunt, that would actually probably play into our favor a little bit, but we can't even, be there on that specific plot. So, but yeah, not to mention, if you're talking about factors, it's just the predators and, other hunters, like Jake said. So.
Yep. You could say that, early season, you're not going to hunt in the morning because odds are you're going to spook off the deer, and then they're going to figure out your movements and where your stand is and things like that. But we can only control that on the 20 acres that we hunt, and we can't control that on every other piece of property that surrounds us that could move deer in or out of the area. So.
Right. Absolutely. For sure. What kind of seed are you guys planting for food plots?
This year, I think we're actually going to plant frigid forage, the big and beastie. We actually had became pretty good friends with the guys from Tag and Brag, and they use that. So that's kind of where we heard about that from. In the past, though, we've used Evolve Harvest, kind of like the throw and grow stuff,
the biologic.
Right. And I think we're going to plant a standing. It's getting late, but I think we're going to plant standing beans and then kind of cross our fingers and hope that they do all right and it's not too late.
And that they stay green later.
With the goal in mind being, that they are going to be green, through October. So hopefully those deer will be hitting it hard. That's kind of something new we're going to try this year. And like you said, we kind of learn as we go along, and that's something we're going to try to test out and see how it works.
Right, absolutely. When you get into something that I'm a little bit knowledgeable about, get into planting beans. You can get them in the dirt right now, and I think that they'll do fine. The only downfall to a soybean late season trying to get some green foliage out of is that the first frost, the soybean's dead.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Yes, so
that's just a factor that plays a role in soybeans for a food plot. But as far as the actual pods and the soybeans, they should be a great nutritional value. And I'm going to tell you this: if they do pod out and the frost gets them and the deer don't hit them right away, that soybeans are killer for late season.
Right.
They're super high in protein, and they're going to bypass them during the early fall, starting in the winter. But once that temperature drops out and the cold weather comes rolling in about December, January-ish, hunting over a standing soybean field is dynamite.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what we're hoping for.
Now look at this. We're constantly trying to learn things, and what just happened right there? We learned something new. So that's something we strive to do every single day.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's something that all hunters, not just you guys, but all hunters and all of our listeners should take in everything that's fresh and new to them and learn from it. That's why we come up with this podcast, and Jay and myself thoroughly enjoy hearing other techniques of hunting, and we're able to pull information from hunters from all over the United States and some from across the seas, and this makes it for a great experience.
Oh, absolutely. You can never learn it all. That's what we say.
All right, absolutely. What kind of mineral are you putting out through the summer months here?
Bone Hog Minerals, actually. They're we hooked up with them, and they've become one of our sponsors over the year.
They're out of Michigan.
Yeah, and we've been using that. We actually got some more in the mail today, but they seem to love it. They hammer it. So we've experimented with it. Sometimes we make our mineral site just straight on the ground, kind of rake it over. But I actually prefer to put it on like a rotten log and one of our bone hog mineral sites actually that we established last year. I haven't even refreshed it this season, but they're still hammering it. So
it's a powdered mineral, so it's not a block where they have to come and lick it.
Right.
So the first rain that hits, all that powder is going to be absorbed into that rotten log or rotten stump or whatever, and turn what would be basically just fiber into something that's of nutritional value.
Right, absolutely.
Definitely has increased our trail camera pictures for sure.
So the activity over the mineral station is increased quite a bit then.
Quite a bit, yeah, absolutely.
And that's in a powder form.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. What kind of tree stand setups are you guys using?
Hang-ons, strictly hang-ons.
Any particular brand?
We try to use the muddy tree stands as much as possible, but over the years we've used the big game tree stands. We actually that company just bought out Muddy.
Lone Wolf.
We've had Lone Wolf. We've
Summit. I mean, we really tried them all.
A lot of times, if there was especially when we were back in middle school and high school, if there was a sale on tree stands at the local Dick's Sporting Goods, we would go and buy 3 of them.
Yeah. Can never have too many stands.
Right. And I think we only ever set stands that have 2 stands in them.
Right. Well, you kind of asked this earlier. We never step foot into the woods anymore without a camera. Actually, multiple cameras. So all of our stand setups are 2 stands. And we're both right-handed shooters. All of us in our family are right-handed shooters. So we try to put the cameraman stand above and to the right of the hunter stand, just enough so you can kind of step on the hunter's seat and step right into the stand. And that allows us to get the best footage, we believe. So that's how our stand is up in the tree. And then obviously we have multiple cameras up there. So it gets kind of rough up there. We got a lot of equipment up in our setups. But
It's definitely it was chaotic at first, but
Right.
Now I think Nick and I especially have chemistry built up to where we just know each other's job, whether we're the hunter or the cameraman in the stand.
Right.
And
it's kind of become like brushing your teeth in the morning and just kind of do it.
How long did it take before that pattern actually set in where you guys are super comfortable with yourselves?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it took me longer. Jake can just do things. I am a slow learner, I'll be honest with you. And so I remember the first time last season was really the first season where we went in, all the way. And we had like 4 or 5 different camera angles every time we went hunting. And I remember clear as day the first time we went up there. I was like, oh my gosh, in the dark. It was opening morning, I think.
Yeah, it was.
In the dark, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. I think setting up, it took me like 45 minutes, maybe longer.
The sun was definitely coming up by the time we were actually set and ready to go.
But now, like Jake said, just kind of second nature. Boom.
So over a year, you progressed to where you're comfortable with setting up everything in the dark and getting everything ready in the tree stand.
Yeah, and I think the key here is that now, regardless of who is carrying the bow and who is carrying the camera, we both trust that each other. We trust each other to do their job and get it set and ready to go, so that we can actually sit in for the long haul and hunt together.
How long did it take that trust to bond?
I think that's where we arrived last year. So roughly a year to get the chemistry down to that level.
Yeah, that's great that you're talking about that, because one of our great listeners could be thinking about partner up with somebody this year, and and you guys explaining that pretty much gives me as somebody that's going to go out and hunt with camera and a bow and 2 hunters, one filming obviously and one with a bow obviously. Give yourself a year's time. So is that pretty good to say a year would do it for?
I would definitely say
a season.
Season.
One deer season, you'll be
I would also recommend that you put your patient hat on and not get frustrated or flustered if things don't go right, because odds are that for that first season there will be times like that.
You're gonna double punch the record button. You're gonna miss a shot that you wanted to get on film and you didn't get it. That's gonna happen for sure, and it's still gonna happen in the future. But
right.
the first season going in like that, you're gonna have some letdowns for sure.
I think I would liken it to the learning curve in a new sport for a young kid. That first year, they're kind of tentative and they don't know all the basics and they don't have the skill set. But by the second year, they're starting to get the hang of it. And I think that's that's kind of where we are right now.
All right, absolutely. That's perfect. I'm glad you shared that, and I know there'll be listeners that really will appreciate that information coming into a new year with maybe a brother or cousin or a friend that's a good hunting buddy that's going to be in the stand with them. Vice versa, they're going to hunt and film each other, and be patient and take your time with it and have fun. That's the whole main thing, is having fun with it.
For sure.
Jay, you want to get into a little bit about a hunt, Jay?
We sure do. Nick, let's go deer hunting.
All right.
I want you to take us on your most memorable deer hunt of all time, and start with where the location, where's the setting, and then let's get into that 48 hours prep time up to the kill shot. Where are we going?
Okay. All right. Perfect. This is actually easy for me. We're going to be in OTown in Ontario, actually on the property right behind our house. We do not own it, but we have permission from the landowner, and our stand is actually like 70, 80 yards from our house. But I'm actually going to take you back 3 years, because this hunt involves a buck that we had watched on our covert cameras for 3 seasons prior to. He's just a real wide, clean 8-point. We estimated him to be about a 3-year-old the first time we had pictures of him. Hunted him that year, never saw him on the hoof. Sure enough, as soon as the season ended, showed back up on camera. Was there all summer again next season. Didn't see him again all season. Neighbor had trail cam pictures of him after the season, so I knew he made it. And then last year, that summer, we started using the Bone Hog minerals. And I mean, when I say he was there every single night, he was there every single night in daylight. And I told Jake, I said, we're gonna kill this deer this year for sure. It's gonna happen. And he actually hung out in his bachelor group with a bigger buck. But I don't know. I just had my heart set on this deer because I just had so much history with him. So it was the second week of the season in Ohio, October 4th. We had hunted opening weekend, both home from college. We were in the woods all weekend, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, we really made it a point. We did not hunt a stand last year unless the wind was absolutely perfect. And I wanted to get in and hunt that stand behind our house so bad opening weekend, but the wind just was not right. So we did not hunt it. And
I'll say this to kind of jut in, but I could almost see Nick itching in his skin to get in that stand and to hunt that deer.
Yeah, it was bad. But sure enough, the second weekend then, I came home from school again. Jay came home, and October 4th rolled around, and sure enough, wind was perfect for that stand. And what it is there is it's like a 20-acre woodlot with a hay field, and we were in a chunk along probably 50 yards from the hay field with a creek right behind us, and they bedded to our left, and we were facing out towards the field. And we knew that they bedded to our left, and obviously the covert cameras had him coming from that way, so we knew that's where they spent most of their time, and they were kind of still on their early season patterns. And we got up in the stand super early, obviously, like we talked about, getting our camera equipment ready. We had to get in there pretty early. I think it was like 3:30.
Early season, I think it was 3:30 or 4 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, 3:30. And we were literally in the stand for 15 minutes. Jake is looking through the viewfinder on our camera. He was, messing with the focus, getting everything set. And he says to me, "Nick, there's a deer." He did not see this buck except for through the viewfinder of the camera. He was literally just happened to be right on him. It was pretty windy, so we didn't hear him come in, and it was so thick still, obviously, on the second week of the season. And when I turned to Jake, first I thought he was just messing with me. I was like, "Okay, really? You're gonna pull this on me? Like, you know how bad I want to be back here, and we're in the stand for 15 minutes, and you're like, Nick, there's a big buck." And sure enough, I whipped my head around, and it was him. I literally could not believe it. And if you watch the video, you hear me say, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's him. Like, it's him." And sure enough, he came right in, gave me a 18-yard shot, quartering to me. I mean, it all happened like that. As soon as we saw him, it was a minute before he gave me a shot, wouldn't you say? 2 minutes maybe?
I think by the time that I realized I was actually seeing antlers in the viewfinder, it was probably a minute and a half to 2 minutes by the time Nick let the arrow fly.
Right. And what also made it so cool, for me is that I was obsessed with how many trail cam photos I had of this deer. I was literally obsessed. I would just like sit up at school in class and just look through these trail camera pictures.
Nick would email me trail cam pictures that we had already gone through together to reiterate how much he wanted to.
What was so cool is right before I shot, he was standing right in front of my trail camera, and I got like 3 pictures of him right before I shot him, which I thought was just awesome. And according to me, just a hair, and I snuck it right behind his shoulder, and he didn't go 80 yards. But before, obviously, we put the track job on him, Jake and I were just absolutely amped in the tree stand. I mean, if you watch the video on our website, you can see me about fall out of the tree, I think. Good thing I had a safety harness on. But yeah, we were stoked, and we backed out. This was also cool, and what made this hunt so memorable for me is we backed out, went to the house. I actually called my dad in the tree stand, freaking out, and went back to the house. We got my dad, my mom, and my younger sister all to come on the track job with us. It was my mom's first time tracking a deer, which was awesome. And we put the track job on him, and sure enough, Jake, you spotted him, I think.
Yep.
About 80 yards from the tree. And from that moment on, it was just, I thought I was dreaming. I felt kind of famous because we had all kinds of cameras rolling, flashes going off, and it just was so surreal. I mean, like, obviously growing up watching all these, hunting TV shows, and that happens, and, it never really happened for us that we had located a deer, patterned him, hunted him, and then it all came together. It just was like amazing for me. And at the same time, it was almost like sad. Like I could never, the chase was over, but I was so excited. And that is my most memorable hunt for sure, without a doubt.
Awesome. I love it. Great story. It's, it's kind of funny how that whole, anticlimactic thing shows up when you actually pull the trigger or
it is.
Make the kill. You're like, it's over.
Right. Yeah.
And not in a good way. Like the hunt is the whole thing. Like that's
right.
The kill's just kind of the end of it.
Right. Well, and out of respect, for the animals we hunt too. We have so much respect for them, and like you said, it's just like you consume so much of your time thinking about them, and just laying in bed at night. I would literally lay in bed at night and think about this deer. I mean,
yes,
probably people think I'm weird, but I mean, I would, and so
I don't think you're weird. That's just the way we think on the Big Buck podcast. Right?
Exactly. Yes.
How many hours?
That's something that like I don't go to bed and count sheep. I count antlers.
Yes.
I sit there and strategize on how I'm going to get to that buck that track I picked up 2 days ago.
Right.
How am I going to get to that buck where he is today? How am I going to make sure he doesn't win me? How am I going to?
Right.
When am I going to wait for that next snow to fly so I can get back on his trail? It's endless,
Yeah.
endless.
I guess I take that back. It's not weird for us, but maybe outside people who are not involved in hunting might think it's weird. But you're right, it's normal.
Right. Those people don't count though.
Yeah, exactly.
Only we count. All right. So Jake.
Yeah.
Let's go on a deer hunt.
Yes, sir.
I know we're going back beyond 8 years.
We're going way back.
That's so wrong, Jay.
It's so wrong what I just said.
You gotta say that's wrong, Jay. You can't.
It's all right. I have accepted it, and I guarantee you that in the 2015-2016 deer season, I will have a picture to email you guys proving that the curse is over.
I have no doubt about that.
Can't wait.
Okay, so it's 2015 now.
Right.
So we're probably going back pre-2007. Where are we going?
Well, this is actually probably the first time that I went hunting with my father, without Nick being there as well. So in the past, before this point, we had gone all three of us. And this day is actually I think I was 8 years old. So that was actually in the year 2000. And it's Thanksgiving morning. I remember waking up out of bed to Dad knocking on my bedroom door. We go downstairs. I remember eating oatmeal with Dad. And I mean, this memory is like a DVD playing on a TV screen right in front of me right now. Obviously, Dad's going to carry his bow, which is an old Bear First Strike compound.
Ancient.
He's using aluminum arrows, the big snuffer broadheads that are ancient history now for most people.
Sure.
And we make the drive to our hunting property, knowing that we couldn't really sit all that long because we had to hightail it over to Grandma's house for lunch on Thanksgiving Day. But my dad and I were out there. We were the only group on this property in a double set. My Uncle Mike is hunting just north of us a bit. Uncle Ron and his son are staggered about 70, 80 yards apart in separate stands. And they're probably to our east about 100 yards. And I believe our grandfather, Dad's dad, was to our southeast a little bit. And this was their hunting ground for years as a group. And they would always try to go out together and sit so that every piece of that property was covered, increasing their odds of somebody harvesting a deer and the memory being shared.
Not worrying about scent, not worrying
right.
any of that.
Right. And I remember climbing up in the stand, and it was a cold Thanksgiving morning. I think it had frosted that morning. I remember watching the sun come up and the red, pink, and orange clouds moving away and out of sight. And it's Thanksgiving, so this is the tail end of the best part of the rut. And I remember looking off in the distance, and it's probably 8 o'clock now, looking and seeing 3 does walk on the horizon. They're moving probably right towards my Uncle Ron's stand. And Dad gets out the old JVC video camera that records to tape and starts recording. And at this point, Dad looks at me and is confused because on the viewfinder of this video camera is a message that says in big, bold, white letters, Happy Thanksgiving. And he's trying to fumble with it, trying to figure out how to get those words to disappear off the screen.
Right.
Well, I'm watching these deer, and the next thing I know, Dad says, there's a buck behind those does. He's chasing them. And they slowly meander towards my Uncle Ron's stand. And Dad says, listen up, you're going to get to hear Uncle Ron's arrow hit this deer. And my ears perked, and I remember my heart pounding on my chest. And it was 20 degrees that morning, but I felt like it was 80 because of how excited and amped up I was. And Dad's recording the whole time. Pretty soon, for whatever reason, those 3 does turned, and instead of going towards Uncle Ron, they came on a beeline right to the base of our tree. And the buck's going to follow him. So Dad, on one of the old pegs that we used to screw into the tree and climb into our stand, hangs the JVC camera up, gets his bow and gets ready for the shot, because we know now that this buck is going to walk right towards us. And the does pass underneath us at probably less than 20 yards. And we're, 20, 25 feet in the air. And as the buck gets closer, you can just see mass. It was palmated, had a huge drop tine on its right side that came down and seemed to wrap around underneath its jaw. The deer was probably, up until maybe the last couple years, the biggest deer that I had seen on the hoof.
Gotcha.
And I just remember Dad saying, be quiet, be still, just watch this, I'm going to get a shot. And, I'm trying to sit still, but I guarantee you that I was bouncing at least 3 feet off the seat of my tree stand because of how excited I was. And sure enough, that buck walked right in the same line that those does did. Dad drew back, shot, that deer took off and ran, bounding through the woods. The does took off in the opposite direction. And I remember looking at Dad and saying, nice shot, celebrating, high-fiving. We were too far apart in the set to give each other hugs, but I know I wanted to. And I remember specifically telling him, based on the old Monster Bucks videos that we used to watch, that, you know what, Dad, now all we have to do is wait 30 minutes before we go and start tracking him. And Dad said, no, that deer's already dead. It was the perfect shot. And so we sat for probably 10 minutes talking about the whole thing, and Dad reached over to pick up the JVC camera, and it was still recording. It was recording the whole time, so we got all of that audio documented. None of the video, of course, because I didn't know how to use the camera at the time, but we got down and followed the blood trail right to the base of Uncle Ron's tree stand. Uncle Ron tells us he saw that deer run past covered in blood and didn't shoot because he knew someone else had shot it. So he joined the track, and we walked further and followed it to the base of my cousin Ronnie's tree stand, who is Uncle Ron's son. The same person who inspired Nick's Bigfoot dreams.
Right.
But the story goes that ended up all of us getting together and tracking this deer for half a mile or more, finding huge pools of blood, consistent blood, for about 450 to 500 yards of this track job. And it ended up fizzling out. And we went back and dumbfounded, put the videotape in to see what we got. And you can hear the shot, and you can hear me say, Dad, now all we have to do is wait 30 minutes. And the sad part is that we never recovered that deer. But I learned so much from it, because those monster buck videos were right. Waiting 30 minutes minimum for whatever deer you shoot just ensures that you're going to be far more successful in recovering a deer. And it was heartbreaking for me and for Dad at the time, but we learned so much from it. And then that's why I think it stuck with me so much.
That's awesome. That's just a phenomenal story to tell. And yeah, the old JVC recorders. Wow.
Yeah.
Which we still have, by the way.
We still have it.
That's excellent. Crazy. You should shoot some new footage on the old camera. See how it looks.
It's a little grainy.
I bet. Let's talk a little bit about the rest of your pro staff. Who's Rachel Miller?
That is our younger sister, who is just incredible at everything she does. She has killed the biggest buck between us, 165-inch stud. She slays turkeys in the spring. She's awesome. She's
a heck of an athlete. She's a wonderful musician. She actually composed a song that we've used in several of our videos. She played on the piano and we put some accompaniment to it. She's a great artist, has a great vision, very well spoken, very smart, and just an all-around great individual. She's a sophomore in high school.
But most importantly, she's a good shot. She's a good hunter. She's 3 for 3 on bucks.
That's important. She's a saxophonist too, according to your bio here. Is that
she is?
Yeah,
that's good. See, I'm an old saxophonist from way back too, so I appreciate that. Yeah,
nice.
Yep.
I think that all started because I played the saxophone when I was in school in the band, and she kind of molded herself towards that. I think partly because we already owned the instrument, but because it caught her attention too.
Nice. All right, Brett Newsling. Tell us about Brett.
Brett Knightsling is how you pronounce his name. Yeah, the spelling always trips people up. He is my best friend, and we've interacted with each other since I can remember pretty much. We were in 4-H together. We were always in class together in high school. We both ran track. He wrestled in high school for a couple years while I wrestled. And we always it seemed like in school, we were the kids who wanted to do the farm work, who wanted to get out and go fishing, who wanted to get out and play paintball and do the outdoorsy stuff. And that's kind of how our clique developed. And he and I were the closest of that group.
Gotcha. All right. And Corey Moyer.
Yeah. And that's my best bud for a while now. And same thing with Jake and Brett. We just have hung out and both enjoy hunting so much. And he actually does a great job self-filming for us, because most of the time Jake and I are out hunting together. And, every once in a while we hop in a tree with Corey, but he does a lot of self-filming and does a great job. He has, I think, multiple hunts on film for us. So, yeah, that's Corey. And he actually also is a guide out west with Trophy Plus Outfitters. So he gets some pretty cool footage out there too.
Excellent. All right, so fast forward 20 years, guys. What's life look like?
Well, Jake texted me about a year ago and said, Nick, I don't know if you remember this. He said, Nick, like, what are we gonna do with this, down the road? Where do you see yourself? And I said, for sure, without a doubt, we are going to be involved in the outdoor industry some way or another, whether we eventually move to television, where we stay online. But whatever we do, we're going to be ourselves. We're going to impact people. And, our goal is to be our motto is one family, filming hunts and capturing memories one day at a time. And in 20 years, that's what I want to be doing. And I want to be impacting as many people as we can.
I would completely 100% agree with everything that Nick just said.
Gotcha.
I guess we like to say that, it's kind of cliche, but the sky's the limit. We're only, it's kind of get sappy. We're only
who stops at the sky? We're going to the moon and beyond.
Yeah, there you go. You only live one life, so we want to, this is what we want to do. We want to continue to film hunts and be as real people as we can be, and hopefully one day we're going to be making a living doing that.
And I think as kids, you grow up with, you start out wanting to be a fireman or a police officer, and then you move to a different career. And Nick and I have both decided that we cannot see ourselves doing anything other than being involved in the outdoor hunting industry. And that's become our passion. And you get really good at what you do if you're passionate about it, and you become really driven. And that's where we are, and that's where we're going to project ourselves 20 years into the future.
Gotcha. Love it. You guys remind me, and Dusty, back me up on this if you think this is true, of the Giarizzos. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so funny you say that, because I was actually talking to Dave last night, and we were talking about how similar we seem. So that's really funny you say that.
Yeah.
Our stories are, I mean, even how they got started compared to how we got started are very, very similar.
Yep, very much so. And as you know, they've been a guest on our show. And
Yeah.
When we see them out and about at different conventions or things like that, we got to hang out with them for a little while, because they're good guys and they crack us up. And they carry energy much like yourselves. And it kind of sets the tone for the day. So it's if you get a little dose of the Giarizzos early in the morning, you're good for the day.
You might be good for a couple of days.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so let me set the stage here. Besides the gun, what's that one item that you have to take with you into the woods that if you leave in the truck, it drives you nuts all day?
Well, I mean, for us, I think we replaced the gun with a bow.
Yeah.
And it's a compound bow.
Okay.
Even during gun season, we hunt with a bow mostly.
And I don't know if I can speak for Nick on this, but for myself, if I forget something in the truck and it drives me nuts, it's a camera. Whether it's a small GoPro or a little action camera or the big video camera. That's the other thing that I want to take with me in the woods to accompany my bow at all times.
For me, it's hand warmers, dude.
Hand warmers. All right. Excellent. All right.
No, I agree with Jake. If we for whatever reason have an SD card that's filled, or forget. I mean, I don't think we really forget a camera very often, but I mean, it's all about. Don't have a camera charged, maybe. That will drive me nuts all day.
Good one. No, I can see that. All right. Yeah. What's a recommended book that you would recommend to other hunters to read?
I just finished reading, actually. It's called Hunting Mature Whitetails the Lukowski Way. I'm sure everyone, Lee and Tiffany, everyone knows them. I learned a lot from it. Obviously, they are, hunting in a hunting situation that we necessarily aren't in, but they still have a lot of awesome tips. Talked a lot about like food plots and patterning deer. But what I liked about it so much is it talked about, where they were 20 years ago and how they started. He was working as like an engineer. It just seemed like fitting because, you got to start somewhere. And that's why I liked it so much, because look where they are now. I mean, it's unreal. And it just kind of is encouraging to know that people like that were just normal people like us as well.
I think it also is something that, Nick talked about their hunting style and their hunting situation is different from someone like us because they have access to a lot of land and can manage several properties and do that for a living, where we're in college trying to get an education and trying to work to pay for school and trying to fit hunting and filming hunts and editing videos all into that mix. But the tips that they have in their book, we can take them and be the creative person and modify them to fit our style of hunting. And I think that's kind of where you learn more, is when you can take someone's advice and adhere it to yourself and your own situation.
Right.
Sure.
Yep. Okay. And how about your number one hunting tip of all time? Nick, go.
Number one hunting tip: do your homework for sure. That is for sure my number one hunting tip. The amount of deer we've had, mature deer that we've had encounters with, and even harvested, has increased drastically just because of, like I said, doing your homework, trail cameras, patterning your deer, hunting, only hunting a stand when the wind's right for that stand. Even going back to Jake's story, not tracking, even if you made a perfect shot, do not track that deer 30, 40 minutes. And, so doing your homework, number one tip for sure. Okay. You can't just go out opening day and hunt and expect the unexpected to happen, I guess.
Okay.
You gotta put time in.
Jake, is that yours as well?
No, I would say that mine is practice does make for near perfect. You got to shoot your bow. If you're taking a camera, you got to practice setting it up. I mean, we hung a wooden tree stand that I built in our backyard in a tree that's not huntable. And we practiced setting up the tree arm and setting up all the other angles and the communication. We practiced packaging all our stuff up so we know we have everything that we need, whether it's arrows, release, that kind of stuff. We practice how we're going to load all that stuff into the truck, the route we're going to take to drive there, how we're going to walk into the woods. We rehearse how we're going to set up cameras, how we're going to set stands, what stand goes in the tree first. And we think about all that stuff and go through it in our heads and practice it so that when it comes to actually executing it, it's as perfect as it can be.
And I want to add on that. One tip for anyone trying to start filming their hunts, don't be afraid and don't hesitate to press the record button, because it's never the same if you have to go back and get that shot later. So if you say, we'll get that shot later, whether it's B-roll of something up in the tree, whether it's after you harvested your deer, take that shot now. Take the time to do it, because you'll be thankful for it later when you're editing and stuff.
Okay, excellent, good tip. Okay, so between Jake, Nick, and Rachel, who's the best hunter?
You put us on the spot.
That's a loaded, like a slug loaded question.
If you said best looking, that's easy. But best hunter, if we're talking, I've killed the most bucks.
Okay.
Rachel has never missed and or not recovered a deer.
Got the highest percentage. All right.
So is it me, Jake? I want to hear you say it.
Highest percentage, I think, is Rachel.
Okay.
Most probably clean successes and most memorable successes goes to Nick. But I would also admit that those come at my hand because I was behind the camera to document it and have proof of it.
That's true. So I guess we're the same.
Okay.
We'll give it to Rachel. Rachel gets it.
It wouldn't be the same if I would almost say that Nick and I are one hunter in two different bodies.
Okay.
Because of how we act in the woods.
And if I were to ask Rachel the same question, what would she say?
Absolutely, she would say her, for sure.
Okay, good. Excellent.
And she wouldn't hesitate either.
Perfect. Guys, tell us who your sponsors are.
So we definitely want to thank Covert Scouting Cameras for the cameras that they make and all the information that we get from them. KS Game Call supplies game calls that we use regularly. All Blade Archery, they make the broadheads that we use. Wolf Premium Oils, we use that to clean our guns. And they actually have bowstring oils now too. Bloodsport arrows, which is part of Muddy Outdoors and the Big Game Tree Stand Network. Hilljack seats, which is a seat that you sit in on the ground to kind of check your angle if you're sitting on a slope. And then Bonehog mineral sights that we use to help gather information on our deer through trail cameras.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so when you guys aren't in the woods and you're not on the mic with us, where can we find you?
Well, I'll be on a wrestling mat anywhere across the country competing, and up until this year, Jake would be running on a track meet somewhere across the country.
And if we wanted to find you online, if we wanted to reach out, if I'm a listener, how do I find you?
You can definitely search OTown Outdoors on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or you can go to otownoutdoors.com.
Okay, awesome, guys. I got to tell you, it's been unbelievable talking to you guys and how well you tell stories, how well spoken you are. The energy level is high, and I love that. Gets us old guys out of our seat, you know what I mean? And just I love what you guys are doing, and I think you have a very, very bright future ahead of you.
Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
Yes.
Dusty, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are headed in the right direction, and man, the passion and love for what you're doing, I can definitely see it in both of you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for having us on. We had a blast. It was awesome.
We definitely did.
I had a blast too. So hang on 1 second, guys, but thanks for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. Nothing like listening to a couple of young guys with just the world ahead of them speak and get you pumped up about your own life. Just hang out with these guys. You can feel the energy.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of them things where I see a lot of young men like, Nick and Jake there, that their head's not on their shoulders right. They're thinking way different than they should be. And their maturity level's way, way lower than the Miller brothers. These guys got it going on, you know. I've been very fortunate to be able to connect with them on a personal level, meet up with them and spend a few hours with them. and they got a father that showed them the right things. He showed them right from wrong, and they're trying to do all the right things and actually go through and build the bridge, and pour the footers and foundation and lay a deck across the river and be able to travel that. And they're doing great things for themselves. Love it.
They're just amazing individuals. And, we get a lot of requests to be on the show. And these guys were probably some of the most persistent, and I didn't really know who they were initially. But when you're that persistent, and then when you talk to these guys, you're like, man, I wish I had done this a while ago. And I apologize to Nick and Jake for not having you on sooner, because it would have been a great show then, just as it was a great show now. But, man, you guys are the best, and thanks for all your support for the Big Buck Podcast. You have our back, and we've got yours, so thanks for being on the show. So, Dusty, do you have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Jay, it's one of the things where it's taken me back to a kid, and it's something that I'll never forget, and something that we as hunters and veteran hunters and even new hunters coming up can think about this in the future. But, anytime you can take the opportunity to talk to an individual about hunting in general, whitetail hunting in particular, stop and take a few minutes and actually pass along that tradition. It's something that if we don't pass it along, we don't keep it rolling, it's something that possibly could go away. Video games and computers and cable TV has drawn the young kids away from the outdoors.
Right.
But that's something as us veteran hunters and guys that's been going to the woods for a very long time can actually make an impact in that by taking that few minutes when somebody asks a question about hunting or the outdoors in general to pass along a little information. You don't got to get them your exact location where your tree stand's at, but maybe give them a few hints and tips to be successful in the whitetail woods or out in the outdoors.
Right. Well, part of that, he said, don't give them your tree stand location. Part of that education and learning is about where you should place your tree stand, not going where somebody else has already figured it out.
Yeah, and what I meant by that, when I said that, Jay, is not give them everything.
Exactly. There's some stuff that you got to learn on your own, because you could tell somebody something and it won't sink in until you actually experience it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we need to work on and do more of. Right. Talking to people.
Right.
Get yourself out there and make yourself available. If you're a veteran hunter or somebody that's been very successful in the whitetail woods, make yourself available to talk to people about that.
Yep. Completely agree.
Open up a little bit.
Yep. So, Dusty, we got a honorable mention on a blog post from Mark Kenyon at Wired to Hunt, who's a fellow podcaster and a great writer and blogger, outdoor writer. And he ranked us in the top 12 outdoor podcasts that you can listen to on iTunes.
That's very cool. Very honored to be in the top 12. And I think that we'll stay there for a long time, Jay. We work really hard, and we try to take our skills to the next level as far as the outdoor podcast industry.
I agree. And, speaking of other great outdoor podcasts, we are on the Outdoor Podcast channel, where you can join our friends Carrie Z, Mike Adams from Up North Journal. You can join Andy Galliano from the Turkey Hunter Podcast, Bow Hunting Freedom with Phil Havens, or Take Aim Outdoors Podcast with Brendan Hammonds, and our good fellow New Hampshireites, the Fish Nerds, Clay Groves and Dave Kellum. So there's another place where you can go, Outdoor Podcast channel. We're actually starting to add more podcasts to the channel. So if you like listening to outdoor podcasts, that's the place to hang out, because there's a lot of them and they're coming daily. And we're on that show. Dusty, we're approaching 200,000 downloads all time for the Big Buck Podcast. I suspect we'll be there in the next day and a half. And we're cruising right along. We've been getting some really good downloads this week, and I can't thank you enough for listening to the show. If you're listening right now, just keep giving us reviews. Turn your other hunting friends on to the show. You can find us on iTunes and any of the Android apps on your phone. That's probably the most downloaded place. So if you want to listen to the show, your phones, it's available right there on your smartphones. So, Dusty, where can we find you when you're not here talking to me?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors, Facebook.com/Chubby Gobbler. And you can also send me an email at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Jay, where can the folks find you at when you're not on the mic here? It's Big Buck Registry and Deer Hunting Podcast.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to invite you, if you are a fan of this show, and if you would like to help donate to the cause, you can do a couple things. You can donate by going to bigbuckregistry.com/donate. Helps us pay the bills. We definitely have, we have hosting costs and travel time and time put into different websites and keeping this hosting going for the show itself. Or you can go to bigbuckregistry.com/pledge and pledge your support on a show type basis, like $1, $2, $5, whatever you feel like is good. If you have a product that you would like to get highlighted on this show, we are looking for sponsors, and that's bigbuckregistry.com/sponsor. And you can read all about our downloads and our audience and what you can expect to find here and price points, although everything is negotiable. If you would like to submit a buck to the Big Buck Registry Facebook page, where we have surpassed 160,000 followers and would like to be famous for a day, go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. If you'd like to check out our Facebook page, it's bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook. We're also on Twitter, bigbuckregistry.com/Twitter, or give us a call at 724-613-2825. And as always, you can email Dusty at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com or me, Jay at bigbuckregistry.com. And I think that's all the places we're hanging out when we're not here talking to each other.
Big buck everywhere. Big buck.
Very nice.
Love
it, man.
Big bucks.
Yep.
Guys, stay pumped up, stay amped up, stay jacked up, fired up. Whitetail season is not very far away.
Yes, very soon we'll be out of this heat and humidity, and it'll be a little cooler. And guess what happens then?
Oh, man. Gotta love it. Whitetail season just around the corner.
Right around the corner.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
I'm Jay Scott. This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.